Do you think Big Meech like told on somebody to get out, snitched, did anything extra?
No. Let me tell you why. Big Meech's paperwork is public records. There is no proof that Big Meech said, hey, bust him, bust him, bust him.
Turin Gangster Williams, who did time with Big Meech, is calling out 50 Cent's story and not holding back. He's shutting down all the snitch talk about Meech and revealing how Meech ran the prison like a true kingpin, with power, respect, and control behind bars.
So, Big Meech, bro, I ain't gonna lie, that man got to that compound, and man, he had some of the guys I would never think that would get BMF, ENT on the left side of their neck, man.
Every inmate showed Meech love and respect, no questions asked. This flips the whole story, and now people are side-eyeing everything 50 Cent's been saying about Meech being a rat. Was Meech really working with the feds, or is 50 just salty he teamed up with Rick Ross? And what did Gangsta reveal about Meech's prison moves? An old interview just resurfaced, and it's changing everything. Let's break it all down.
Big Meech, bro, I ain't gonna lie, that man got to that compound, and man, he had some of the guys I would never think that would get BMF, ENT on the left side of their neck, man. It was tattooed, and he made it clear. He said, listen, I'm not giving nobody no connect. I'm not hooking nobody up with nothing. I'm not doing nothing when y'all go home. So in other words, people try to get with him just for, the games, for me, let it be known, look, I ain't got nothing.
In a resurfaced interview, New Orleans street legend Terrence Gangsta Williams spoke on what life was like with Big Meech behind bars. Gangsta made it clear, Meech wasn't just another inmate. He was that guy. He had real pull, with every man inside following his lead like he ran the place. Meech didn't need to flex. His influence came naturally. Gangsta even said Meech was so connected, he could get the keys to any yard he stepped into, like the whole prison system was his personal playground. But here's where it gets even crazier.
They was there when it was changing.
Exactly.
And they caught it. Okay, we're gonna catch, we're gonna do this party, we're gonna have the tigers and the lions and you know what I'm saying, elephants and stuff, all that, like we never seen that type of stuff. Like you can say what you wanna say, you know what I'm saying, about, but that type of stuff you only seen in movies, and you didn't even see that in movies.
Yeah.
Even though Meech had a chance to break out and return to that millionaire lifestyle before the feds locked him down, he chose to stay and do his time like a man. We'll dive into that escape story in a minute, but first, let's clear up this snitch talk. Everyone knows 50's been calling Meech a federal informant, using his former associate Tammy Cowens to back him up. But when Gangsta was asked directly about Tammy's claims, he made one thing very clear.
Tammy Cohen is a government informant. So they told me, he says, you know what this is about? And I said, no. He said, well, you threatened a government informant, and that's a federal offense.
He doesn't believe for a second that Meech cooperated with the feds. On top of that, Gangsta threw major shade at industry names like 50 Cent, calling them out as hypocrites for picking and choosing who they label a snitch based on who they like or who they're beefing with.
But I'm in here with a 27-year sentence based on Demetrius Flannery, as you all know as Big Meech, and Tammy Cowens, known in the paperwork as CS1.
Right.
Confidential source 1. So what Big Meech did was call a third-party cooperation.
If you really want to understand how all this snitch talk even got started, you've got to rewind all the way back to the rise and fall of BMF, the legendary empire that once had the whole country buzzing. That empire is exactly what landed Demetrius Big Meech Flannery in a courtroom, ultimately facing a 30-year sentence. But here's the twist. Meech didn't have to do that time. There was a real moment when he could have dipped out, left the country, and disappeared like a ghost, leaving all the charges behind. But instead of running, Meech stood tall and faced it head-on. That move earned him major respect in the streets, but it also planted the seeds for the mess we're seeing today, including the snitching rumors 50 Cent keeps running with. Let's take it back to the beginning. The Black Mafia family wasn't just another crew. They were a full-blown criminal empire, launched in 1985 out of southwest Detroit. It was the brainchild of two brothers, Demetrius Big Meech Flannery and Terry Southwest T. Flannery. These two weren't just ambitious. They had something even more powerful, a direct line to top-tier Mexican cocaine. With that kind of supply, BMF rose fast, becoming one of the biggest operations in the game. And they didn't run it like everyone else. They used a family-owned car service as a front to transport and hide their moves, making it all look like a legit business. By the early 2000s, BMF had their hands in everything: the streets, the clubs, and even the music industry. They built a flashy entertainment empire right on top of their drug operation, using it to launder money and flex their status. At their peak, BMF had over 500 members moving weight and calling shots across the country. Meech wasn't just the boss. He was the face of the empire. The first time he got shot was back in the 80s, caught a bullet in the neck outside a Chinese restaurant. Then, in 2004, it happened again, this time outside an Atlanta nightclub. That second shooting, it came after a run-in with Anthony Wolf Jones, Diddy's former bodyguard. Meech walked away with just scrapes, but Wolf and another man were killed. But BMF wasn't just about drugs and violence. It was a lifestyle. They had 13 mansions across the country, fleets of luxury cars, closets stacked with designer fits, and jewelry straight from Jacob the jeweler. Meech made sure he stayed iced out, no matter where he went. He always said BMF was about brotherhood, family first. But once they hit the top, that bond between Meech and T started to crack. The love turned into a power struggle. People still talk about how they'd be partying one moment and arguing the next, right in front of the crew. Neither wanted to play second fiddle. Meech even started accusing T of skimming off the top, straight from the BMF pot. By the time the empire hit its peak, Meech and Southwest T couldn't even run things side by side anymore. They split the whole operation down the middle. T moved to LA to stay connected with their Mexican pipeline, while Meech claimed Atlanta as his kingdom. He turned the city into his personal playground, keeping the streets hot and the clubs even hotter. But once the brothers split, the crew did too. People inside BMF started picking sides, and what was once a unified force turned into fractured factions. That crack in the foundation was the beginning of the end. In 2000, Meech switched gears and launched BMF Entertainment, trying to transform his street fame into music industry clout. With his larger-than-life personality, flashy image, and room-commanding presence, Meech blended into hip-hop like he was born for it. At their peak, BMF wasn't just dominating the streets, they were running the culture. Diddy, Jay-Z, T.I., Jeezy, even 50 Cent, they all popped bottles with Meech like he was royalty. Meech's flexes are still the stuff of legend. People still talk about him, and his crew rolling 100 deep into clubs, shutting down VIPs with ease. One night, just to prove a point, he pulled up in both of his Maybachs and parked them next to Jay-Z's. But his most iconic moment, that jungle-themed birthday bash at Magic City, Meech went so far as to bring 2 live white tigers into the club. Who else could even dream of pulling that off? Splitting the empire helped BMF expand, but it also deepened the cracks. T wasn't feeling Meech's wild lifestyle. Private jets, non-stop cameras, the endless flexing. It made him anxious. Instead of hashing it out, T started venting to close family and friends. What he didn't know, the feds were listening the entire time. Wiretaps caught everything. Meanwhile, Meech kept living like royalty, throwing million-dollar parties and inviting the whole city. But undercover agents had already infiltrated. These weren't average cops. This was a full-on federal task force blending in, tracking every move, and waiting for the perfect time to strike. After 15 years of surveillance, the feds were finally ready. They'd brought it all minus 900 pages of wiretaps, informant statements, financial records, and footage tracking Meech from the club to his home. When they struck, it was like a hurricane crashing through Meech's empire. The empire Big Meech built came crashing down hard. By 2005, the feds had everything. Wiretaps, paper trails, snitches. The whole case was airtight. When they finally moved in, it was game over. Big Meech and Southwest T were both hit with drug trafficking and racketeering charges during a massive coordinated takedown that rocked the streets and shook the entire rap game. T was arrested in St. Louis, while Meech got caught in Frisco, Texas. But it didn't stop with them. Minus 150 BMF affiliates were arrested alongside them, officially closing the curtain on one of hip-hop's most legendary street dynasties. But here's the wild part. BMF knew the storm was coming. After T got snatched, Meech had a real chance to vanish for good. He could have dipped to Mexico, left the U.S., and started a new life. But that wasn't his style. Meech stopped in Miami before heading to Frisco, where the feds finally caught up to him. When they came knocking, they didn't just want Meech and T, they wanted the whole Flenory family. Their father, sister, and even girlfriends got swept up too. Why? Because their names were tied to homes and businesses used to launder money to the feds that made them part of the conspiracy. This was when things got real. The DEA offered a deal. If Meech and T took full responsibility, their family would walk. No charges, no trials, just freedom. Without hesitation, the brothers took the deal, standing tall and owning the entire operation. That's how the Black Mafia family got hit with the Continuing Criminal Enterprise Statute, one of the heaviest charges in the game. Both Meech and T pleaded guilty and got 30-year federal sentences. But here's the twist. In 2020, T got early release thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic. The judge granted him compassionate release, allowing him to serve the rest of his sentence on house arrest. Meech, however, wasn't so lucky. Despite his health issues, his request for early release was denied, and he stayed behind bars. Finally, after 20 long years, Meech walked out of prison in October 2024. But it wasn't full freedom. He was sent to a halfway house to finish out his time under strict supervision. Still, even while the Flenory brothers were locked up, BMF didn't fade away. Instead, they became cultural legends. Their legacy lived on through the streets, music, fashion, and constant shout-outs from rappers and hustlers paying homage. Just 5 years after the takedown, Meech's story went pop culture. In 2010, journalist Mara Shalhoub dropped her book BMF, The Rise and Fall of Big Meech and the Black Mafia Family, sparking renewed interest in the saga. In 2010, Mara Shalhoub's book BMF, The Rise and Fall of Big Meech and the Black Mafia Family dropped, pulling back the curtain on Meech's criminal empire. That same year, Rick Ross released the hit song BMF, Blowin' Money Fast, turning Meech's name into a full-blown rap anthem and glorifying the untouchable, flashy lifestyle he lived. From there, Meech's legend only grew. Fast forward to 2020, and the BMF legacy hit new heights. 50 Cent teamed up with SDARs to launch the BMF series, a dramatized look at the rise of the Black Mafia family. To make it even crazier, Meech's own son, Lil Meech, made his acting debut portraying his father. The show was a smash hit. Then, in 2022, 50 dropped an 8-hour docuseries, the BMF documentary, blowing money fast for fans craving more behind-the-scenes drama. By 2023, the BMF universe was expanding with 3 new spin-offs and a 3rd season in the works. But just when it seemed the BMF legacy was bigger than ever, a photo changed everything. Shortly after Meech was released in 2024, he linked up with Rick Ross. One viral photo of the two reignited the old tension between 50 Cent and Meech. 50 wasted no time accusing Meech of snitching, claiming he had paperwork to prove it, and even saying the BMF show was finished. But fans were quick to point out that the same documents have been floating online for years, and none of them confirm Meech was a federal informant. Now it gets messy. Even if Tammy Cowens, a former Meech associate, made a deal with the feds to reduce his sentence, that doesn't automatically make Meech a snitch. True cooperation would have required Meech to sign off, giving her permission to share info. If he didn't know or wasn't involved, it's more like a legal technicality, not real snitching. Still, 50 keeps pushing the narrative that Meech knew what Tammy was doing and that he was feeding her the info. Meanwhile, people who actually know Meech, like Terrence "Gangsta" Williams, are standing up and saying they don't believe it for a second. So now the question's yours. Why is 50 so pressed to prove Meech is a snitch? And if this paperwork has existed for years, why didn't 50 have a problem when he was cashing in on Meech's story for the BMF series? Why now? Just because Meech linked with Rick Ross? Let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and hit that subscribe button, because the drama, it's far from over. See you on the next one.